Hello, Spokane, and welcome to EvoReal Talks. I'm Jessica Side, here with my husband, Matt Side.
Matt Side.
Yes. Sorry, he didn't know I was going to say his name, but I said his name. Welcome back. We're excited to have you here. We're excited for another episode, and it gives us the opportunity to talk about Spokane and the surrounding areas and things that we love and the history that has formed us. So, Matt, let's start out with featured property of the month. It's not a featured house of the month.
Well, is it of the month? It's probably of the week.
Of the week, of the month. Yeah. So
anyway,
tell us a little bit about
our featured property.
Yeah.
34300 Ptarmigan Lane North.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to spell that because I don't know that everybody knows how to spell Ptarmigan. It starts with a P.
Yeah, you would never know that.
P as in Paul. Tarmigan. It is an 8-acre, just over 8-acre parcel.
Mm-hmm.
It's listed for $129,000.
Yep.
And it is 20 minutes outside of Davenport, Washington, toward Lake Roosevelt, so north of Davenport, Washington. It is in a gated community with a clubhouse, tennis courts, swimming pool, and spa, which is unusual for a large parcel like that.
Yeah.
And it is ready to build. It's just a few minutes drive from Lake Roosevelt in the Seven Bays area, which has marinas and all sorts of cool stuff in the Seven Bays.
Such a great area.
It has power at the road. There's a well already installed.
I just think it's very unusual when I hear you say a gated community. I think of house, 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 house. But this isn't all of the. I've seen other property around that area, and they're all large parcels.
Probably an 8-acre minimum on everything.
No, actually, that's not true. There's several of them that are like 3 acres and things like that. This one happens to be 8 acres. And for $129,000, that's a really great deal.
The cool thing, so it's 20 minutes outside of Davenport,
right,
which is less than an hour from Spokane. So you're looking at probably about an hour and 15 minutes max from downtown Spokane.
To have an 8-acre estate with, again, the clubhouse, I don't know. I just think it's so cool. Like that idea of living in on your own acreage, but having the amenities of a pool and a clubhouse and a tennis court.
And the reality of the economy that we're in, if you will, like this ability to work remotely from your job so frequently. If your job's in Seattle, for example, you could live on it's a small farm. 8 acres is a small farm.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know what the CC&Rs are as far as
I
like
don't think you can farm.
animals and agriculture and stuff. But the point being that you're in a rural situation. So if you're interested in that property, it's on our website. You can check it out on our Facebook page and then reach out to us, 509-62-HOUSE. And we would love to give you more details about it, set up a showing of the property. So reach out. Yeah,
and we've got a good drone footage on that as well. So you can check that out, which will give you a little bit of a sense of the area and the, all the stuff.
Yeah, for sure. Area. So we're talking about rural property.
Yes.
And this is the direction I want to go with the first part of our show today. I want to talk about rural Washington.
Nice.
Here's my little phrase. Rural Washington, the story of open spaces and near nature living.
Ooh.
Poetic, right?
So we were just talking last night. We were just talking last night about how Matt has the soul of a poet, and that he just every once in a while it kind of comes out, and
there it is. And now I'll bring it back.
Can I tell you where it came out last night? Do you remember why we were talking about it?
I don't.
We were talking about
Anne. I want to give you permission.
We were talking about Anne of Green Gables, and as a teenager, Matt read all of the Anne of Green Gables book series, and
there's like 5 or 7 books.
Yeah, I mean he was, and the wonderful thing is, even as a teenager, he was not ashamed of that at all. He was proud of the fact that he liked Anne.
I loved Anne.
Yeah.
I loved Anne. It was like, where can I go marry this girl? But anyway.
Yeah, so our daughter, he can actually have an intelligent discussion about Anne and Anne with an E and all of that. So that's where the poet conversation came last night.
All right, let's get back to real estate.
Of course. Go ahead.
So we're talking about Spokane area, Eastern Washington, rural spaces. One of the draws, as I mentioned before, this property we just talked about, a shorter commute than many people in Southern California have to get to work living in the middle of the city, right? Like there's an hour to 2-hour commute. And if you look an hour outside of Spokane's core, like the map is peppered with all of these kind of eastern and east central Washington farm communities,
Mm-hmm.
all within that short period of time. And so I think that that's a big draw. It's a draw to people for the property we just talked about, but
Mm-hmm.
even just those communities. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about the agricultural community or economy, if you will, within
Mm-hmm.
Washington State.
Yeah.
So let's just start with some stats.
I'm ready for stats. I like stats.
Washington has 39,000 operating farms.
That's a lot.
They are on more than 15 million acres
Wow.
of active farmland in the state of Washington. It's obviously a major agricultural state. It's actually the third largest agricultural exporter in the nation.
Third largest in the nation.
In the nation.
That kind of boggles my mind a little bit.
Yeah, and
especially when you think about
you
the
think
bread basket.
or
What do they
think
call
of
it?
California. I mean, look at how massively huge that state is.
Yeah.
So that's pretty, to brag about for Washington. So it ranks first in the U.S. for production of 11 different commodities. I'll list a couple of the most popular ones here. Apples, sweet cherries, pears, hops,
Oh man, we should have done
and red raspberries.
we should have done
No.
a quiz.
Oh.
I would have loved a quiz
it's too
about
bad.
that. I would have said apples. Yay for me.
Second in the
Okay.
U.S. You want to guess at these, or you just want to?
What did you say the first ones were?
First ones were apples, sweet cherries, pears, hops, and red raspberries.
I know that Idaho is known for its potatoes, but are we known for our potatoes at all?
We are the second.
Oh, really?
Second, that's one of the number 2 items. So we have
Sweet.
8 commodities
Sweet.
that we rank second in the
I'm not going to
U.S.
try and guess the rest of them. That's
So
the only one I'm
potatoes-
gonna guess.
Potatoes, grapes, and onions.
Okay.
And that actually, the grapes leads into
Of course,
one of the
onions.
final stats.
Walla Walla sweets. I
Hello,
love
come
Walla
on,
Walla
Jessica.
sweets. I grew up eating Walla Walla sweets with my grandpa.
Washington is also the second largest producer of wine in the United States.
Wow. Way
which
to go.
is pretty cool.
Way to go,
Way to go,
Washington.
Spokane.
I was going to say
Way to go,
Spokane.
Washington.
Way to go, Washington State.
Eastern Washington, so it's a different. I mean, obviously
Sure.
we've got a diverse climate in the state of Washington.
Very
so
much so.
Eastern Washington is a more desert-like climate,
Mm-hmm.
and its agricultural highlights include cattle ranching, dairy farms, wheat, apples,
Mm-hmm.
pears, cherries, grapes, and other vegetables.
Sure. And we know some of those wheat farmers and cattle farmers.
We sure do,
Mhm.
and that's which again. Let's talk about that.
Mm-hmm.
My family grew up in, and we've probably talked about this in past
You didn't grow up,
episodes.
but you're...
No, my family, like my grandfather and my
Mhm.
mom.
Mhm.
My mom grew up in Odessa, Washington.
Yeah.
And again, this is kind of the cool thing with these little communities so close to Spokane. Like some of the beauty of these little towns are the community events that they do, like the rodeos and the
Deutsches
community
Fest.
days. Odessa is famous, or maybe infamous,
I don't,
for its
I don't
Deutsches
think it's
Fest.
infamous.
Oh, come
I think
now.
it's famous, at least in our family, for Deutsches Fest.
I know, it's one of those things that people are like, "Oh, Deutsches Fest." When I say,
Oh, really?
you talk about Odessa
Okay.
with people.
I
in
guess you grew
Spokane.
up with that. I didn't grow up with that, but
Now, and soon you need to start throwing Odessa into your conversation.
okay,
and
I
Deutsches
will do
Fest
that.
come out. So I got to just talk a little bit about Odessa.
Okay.
Let's talk about the Odessa territory.
okay.
So, some history. Was first settled around 1880 by
Mhm.
cattlemen who felt the bunchgrass covered land, with Crab Creek running through the middle of it,
Mm-hmm.
was one of the best rangelands in the Northwest. One such man, George W. Finney, later known as the founder of Odessa, who once homesteaded land upon which the town now stands. In 1892, the Great Northern Railroad was built through this part of the country with a sidetrack known as the Odessa Siding. In order,
Side as an S-I-D.
S-I-D-I-N-G, so it was a sidetrack off the main.
You know that's our last name, right?
Oh, look at that.
Okay. Anyway.
In order to attract settlers to Odessa and ensure themselves of future success, the Great Northern Railroad offered immigrants free passage and the opportunity to obtain homesteads. By 1898, Mr. Finney realized the potential and donated his land and platted the town site.
Okay.
80% of the immigrants settling in Odessa are consisted of Germans from Russia. Many settlers heard of the new land through friends and relatives already living in the area south of Odessa, such as Ritzville and Colfax. These German families living along the Black Sea and the Volga River in Russia as wheat farmers for the past 100 years were discouraged by increasing taxes, government harassment, and forced military service. Therefore, their decision to leave Russia and move westwards were made easy. Entire families came to Odessa area, bringing with them the German culture they strove to retain throughout many years of hardship in the Russian domination. So that thus the Deutsches Fest was born.
And they actually have, like, they've got a, now tell me if this is permanent or if it's just there for Deutsches Fest. They have like a hall where you can get beer and you can get your...
They build it out for the Deutsches Fest.
Okay.
Like the beer garden is...
I've done Deutsches Fest, but
The beer garden is a huge draw, and it is not operating all the time.
Okay.
Because as the final in this little article that I found, the population has basically kind of been consistent at around 1,200 people since, for the past, whatever,
100 years.
Anyway, no, because it was in 1902 was when it was incorporated,
Sure.
and there was only 500 people then.
Okay.
So it's doubled its population in 100 years.
Woo! Just ballooned.
So last thing I want to read here. These plucky pioneers and their descendants are to be commended for their thrift, industry, simplicity, and Christian beliefs. Their lives revolved around home, family, and church. Kircha, Kinda, and Kucha, which literally means church, children, and kitchen.
Nice.
So there you go. That's Odessa.
That's interesting. Thanks, hon.
Yeah. And so we're talking Odessa. Can I just say to our listeners out there that the American cowboy still lives there? Like that, not just the idea of, but real cowboys live in Odessa. And I know this because that is part of my family. And my Uncle Doug Roller recently passed away. And he was, I can recall growing up in Spokane and spending summers down there in rural America, and I wrote this, with a true American cowboy, my Uncle Doug.
Yeah.
And so I gotta paint a picture of my Uncle Doug here. So
this is a little bit of a tribute.
A little tribute to my Uncle Doug Roller. So Doug had a handlebar mustache, so kind of picture him now. He always wore cowboy boots, Wranglers with a huge belt buckle, a button-up shirt, not like a flannel, but like, you know, those button-up with the buttons, the snap buttons.
That's right.
The little pearl buttons. And it was always tucked in, and he always had a cowboy hat on. And I'm not even kidding. He always wore boots and Wranglers and a cowboy hat. Yeah. Now he wore work boots.
He wore it well.
He was a cowboy. He had work boots. He had dress boots. He had probably just normal everyday boots. Same with his hats.
Yeah. Oh, his hats. Great hats.
He had the work hats. He had the dress hats. He had the casual hats. He probably had cowboy hats for football games.
We'll have to ask Aunt Sue if that's true.
Cowboy nature. His hat would come off when the national anthem would play, when people would pray, when he would go into a church. But those are probably some of the few times that it came off. And, not graduations. Only when the wedding was in a church, but if it wasn't in a church, the hat would be on.
That's right.
All right, so my Uncle Doug, he was one of these agricultural companies, right? Like he owned B&D Cattle Company. They specialized, you're going to love this, they specialized in Piedmontese cattle. So that is a breed of cattle that everybody was always so proud of, the Rollers and their Piedmontese, because they're a specialty breed that and I'm quoting my mom, it was the favorite beef of back east. Like
beef of back east, huh?
Yeah, those highfalutin restaurants back east would serve the Piedmontese. Like the restaurants, my Uncle Doug would never, he wouldn't be caught dead in them. All right, so the Piedmontese is a breed of domestic cattle that originated in the region of Piedmont in northwestern Italy.
Oh, really?
I was like, what?
Oh, that's interesting.
I thought that was really interesting, too.
Yeah.
They have it's a lower fat beef with exceptional tenderness and flavor. So.
Nice.
So some memories, just quick memories.
Yeah, no, I want to hear it. I think I think it's important that we point these things out, especially right now.
Honestly, as I was kind of thinking of some of these memories, this is I picture us in the hot, long days of summer on my Uncle Doug's ranch between Odessa and Harrington, Washington.
Right.
And I mean, it was like we would get up as soon as the light was on and we were gone, we were out on the ranch doing stuff, messing around, getting in trouble. We would come home when we were absolutely starving for lunch. And then we would be gone again until 9 o'clock at night when it was getting dark.
Yeah.
And so I'm remembering the ranch. Like there was the house off to the side was the chicken coop. Then right behind it was the kind of a horse pen. This is where the horses that we could ride were usually kept. They were closer to the house, a little bit tamer, if you will. Below that was where the shop was, where all the heavy equipment was at. And then other horse pens where the Greenbrook horses were at that we couldn't ride because we might hurt ourselves. And then behind that was where like the pig pens were. And so that's the picture. And it was really like we would spend these hot, dusty summer days dreaming about being cowboys ourselves. And so we would, we would, when we were little, my Uncle Doug would like saddle a horse for us before he would leave in the morning. And that way we could like ride the horse around.
Right.
Because we were 8, 9, 10 years old, like Benson's age, out riding a horse in the fields, and we would be messing around down with the pig pen and like Dusty. If Dusty ever listens to this, he would get in so much trouble, and half the time it was our idea, but when Doug would get mad and yell at us, it was actually Dusty that was getting yelled at, and we would kind of step back and be like, glad we weren't in the line of fire.
You're like,
but it was probably,
I don't know nothing. He's the cowboy's son.
It was probably my idea for Dusty to sneak into the pig pen and like try and touch the mama sow and run out before he got gored.
My Lord.
Anyway, crazy memories. Obviously, as we got older, we had the knowledge and the ability to kind of catch and saddle the horses ourselves. And then we literally would spend the whole day pretending that we were the man from Snowy River. We had our own, it was that era.
You know the woman in that.
Yeah.
Remember what's her name?
I was going to say, I was just thinking about it today. Wasn't it Jessica?
Yes, it was.
Look at that.
You got a Jessica.
I got a Jessica. So we would go out, we would, as we got older, we actually spent some time working on the farm too. So we'd get up early, we'd go move pipes, we'd feed the cows in the morning. I remember as like a 10 or 11-year-old, like I got to drive the truck. Like he put it in gear and it would just kind of idle and move forward, and I got to steer the truck, and the cows were all coming in, and he was in the back throwing the hay off to the cows as they'd come in. And so great. I mean, we had great experiences there. And then even older than that, like as we got older, we got to get more involved in what was going on there. So I remember I probably was maybe 14 or 15. Like we would go out. So the cows would kind of calve in the spring, and we'd have to drive around and to check on the cows and make sure that they were okay. And there were times where like a cow was having trouble birthing its calf. And so there was one particular time I remember that there was a breech calf. And so we like parked the truck, and Doug was trying to get it turned around, and he's like,
so you're like there.
Like we're there. This like, I remember it was cold and kind of damp and dark because it was probably like 6:30 in the morning. And he's like, all right, Matt, get over here. It's your turn to try and turn him. I remember, I'm not even kidding you. I remember being like up to my shoulder trying to like inside the womb of this cow, trying to turn the calf around to pull it out. And eventually you had to, pull the calf. So the mama's in labor, not able to get it out. We literally would have to like tie a chain around the calf's legs and like slowly like pull it out. Yeah. And so
I've read that book.
You have? I don't know what book that is.
All Creatures Great and Small. Sorry, that's a book. It starts out with that kind of a scene in it.
And then I think kind of my final memories with my Uncle Doug, not final memories, but as a kid growing up on the ranch down there, not really growing up on the ranch, but you get it. Yes. Is that we would, in the spring and the fall, they would do like a roundup, and we would go out, we'd literally saddle our horses in the morning and go out into the pasture and round up the cows and calves and bring them, like herd them back into the corrals so that they could do their dehorning and vaccinations and branding and castrating and all that kind of stuff that they would do with the calves in the spring. Our job, we were the grunt labor. Like we were in the squeeze chute, like shoving the calves through. And you would literally end of the day just dirty, sweaty, like cow stuff all over you. We won't get too descriptive.
Now, are you going to talk a little bit about the branding piece?
Yes, actually, I am. I have that right here. So my cousins went before my Uncle Doug's burial and took his brand and branded his casket with his brand.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a beautiful way for him to be lowered to rest.
Yeah.
Was to have his brand on his casket. It was pretty special.
Yeah.
Pretty awesome. So my last thoughts, I wrote down lessons I learned from my cowboy uncle. So I'll share those kind of toward the end here. So, all right. Lesson 1, never lay your hat on its brim. You'll always put it upside down.
All right. I like it.
Some of these are really practical
Yeah,
lessons.
that's good.
If you have something on your face, that's what your sleeve is for. Like he literally, when I was probably like 4 or 5 years old, I was like, why are you using a napkin? That's what your sleeve's for. The saddle horn isn't to hold on to, it's for your rope.
Okay.
You could tell a cowboy from a city slicker if they were holding the saddle horn.
Yeah, I'm sure. I've ridden a horse a few times, and I know every time I've done that. So, city slicker.
All right, so here's a couple other ones. We make time for the things that are important to us. He was a great example of time invested in his dream of being a cattle rancher, time with his family and in his community. So we make time for the things that are important for us. This lesson, you gotta cinch the saddle more than once.
Oh, okay.
So this is kind of, for me, it's the idea of being thorough in the things that you do. So when you cinch a saddle up, like the horse, if the horse has been around for very long at all, like pushes its belly out so that when you're done cinching, it can let it up and it's not so tight and uncomfortable.
Gotcha.
Which means you have to go cinch it a second time. So if you're not thorough in what you do, you're going to find that your saddle's leaning.
Gotcha.
So,
there he goes.
Another lesson from my Uncle Doug. Just because it's hard doesn't mean you can't do it. And that was an example I learned when we were trying to learn how to rope.
Yeah.
And just like he would give us some ideas and techniques on how to do it, but at the end of the day, you just have to practice until you get it. Another lesson, when somebody needs help, you should help them. An example of that was, I don't know why, but my Uncle Roy up in Laurier, Washington, had a bunch of hay out in the field, and it had to get put up or it was going to start to mildew.
And Uncle Roy is not the same family. This is not his brother.
No, it's a different family. It's not his brother. It's a brother from another mother, right? They're not related. And we were all on vacation in Laurier, and we all took half the day, 5 or 6 hours of our vacation day, to literally buck hails and get that put up because Roy needed the help and he was going to lose his hay if we didn't get it up. And I don't remember the details other than that. Another lesson from my Uncle Doug. The satisfaction of a job well done is sometimes just a job well done.
Ooh, that's good.
I just remember those days I was talking about when we were working the cows. Like, the satisfaction from that day, we didn't get any money. We weren't being paid to do this.
Sure.
We were just working hard, and it felt good to work hard and accomplish something. And then the last lesson that Uncle Doug I have referenced over the years, when you get bucked off, you dust yourself off and you get back on. And I have the memory of getting tossed from a horse. And after he made sure I wasn't needing to go to the hospital, other than that, I know it hurts, and I know you don't want to get back up there. You dust yourself back off and get back on that horse. And that is a life lesson. If you've never been tossed from a horse, you don't know the mental battle it is to get back up on that creature that you know might dump you off again. Yeah. And so
I know. I'm tearing up. That's just the way I am. He's looking at me like, you're crazy, woman.
These are some of my life lessons that I probably didn't even really think that came from my Uncle Doug until I took the time to really think about it. So.
Yeah. And hopefully Aunt Sue gets a chance to see this and hear this and know these things about.
Yeah. And my
your
cousins.
feelings about your Uncle Doug.
Dusty and TJ and Nicole, my cousins.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So we will miss you, Uncle Doug.
Yes, we will. Oh, man. Now I'm feeling all emotional.
Well, we've got a few minutes left. What are you going to transition to?
Yeah, I know. Oh, my goodness. This just doesn't even seem right, I got to tell you. Now, I have some stuff. We talked last week about Spokane's recovery from, the big fire, the Great Fire of 1889. And I have some things this week about the recovery of that. I'm trying to decide if I have enough time to go into that or if I should break it up a little bit.
I think we should break it up a little bit, and I think that you wanted to talk about...
Yes, I have something. Yeah. I just wanted to make sure. I'm just trying to decide. I'm like, I maybe could fit it all in.
I get in trouble a lot for not telling a story very well. Like, I jumped to the punchline a little bit too fast. True. So you could see her cut me off really fast because I was going to give away something.
No, okay, so here's kind of a fun thing, and we'll transition to this. And you will be able to find this if you go to our Facebook page. We will make sure that it's posted there. But Spokane is actually in the middle of trying to choose a new city flag. And I thought it was kind of fun. So there is a place, and we'll link it on our Facebook page where you can go. There are over 300 designs, 301, which sounds very overwhelming.
Whoa.
But honestly, the website is super easy. You don't have to register, and it shows you maybe 12 at a time, 20 at a time, and you can just there's a little heart next to every single flag, and you can heart those. And what they're doing is they're narrowing down, because in the spring of this year they're going to actually let people vote. So they're taking those 300 flags and they are getting people's input by those little hearts.
I see.
And then that will then narrow down to a smaller group. And it's really fun. Actually, it's really fun. As obviously a lot of different people submitted these. And you have the ones that I like the best are the ones that focus on the river, that focus on farming in the surrounding areas, and have something to do with our native history. Also, some of the ones with the Monroe Street Bridge, that kind of iconic. Yeah. And
Does it have a garbage goat on any of them?
I think there might be. I know that Expo 74 plays into some of those, which Expo 74 certainly had a focus on those things as well, the river, our heritage, those kinds of things. So I think it's kind of fun. I think it might be fun for you to go check out. So go to our Facebook page. Yeah. There'll be a link there. You can go there, and it's really no registering. Go do some
hearting, because we don't want people to vote in dumb ones.
Yeah.
Because that is always a risk for something like this.
No, I'm not going to say any of them are dumb. Obviously, somebody worked at it and somebody submitted that. So
I'm sorry if I offended you by calling them dumb. There are some that might be better than
others. Certainly. And you can it's super fast. You go through the pages.
They all get a participation award for being in the top 300, right?
Yes, I think so. I think it might be the only 300. So I'm just saying, I don't know. Anyway, that's what I have for you today, folks. And then next week I will finish up by talking about the recovery from the 1889 Great Fire. It's quite interesting. We have some figures that you will know who they are that kind of started their careers after that fire and because of that fire, honestly. So
that'll be very interesting. Yeah. Thank you, Jessica, for wrapping us up here.
You're welcome.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us today on EvoReal Talks. If you need any help or have questions about real estate-related stuff, you can find us at 509-62 House or just search our social media or website at EvoReal. We'll talk to you soon.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.